Hello, my name is Todd. I'm co-founder of Infinite Red. I created RubyMotionQuery, or RMQ, and I also write the RubyMotion Dispatch newsletter. So today we're going to create an app, a little image browser app, from start all the way to the end. And we're going to do it in RubyMotion and use RMQ. So first we need to install RMQ's gem. We need it as a gem so that we can use the RMQ command line command. So let me do this. So RMQ is similar to Rails in that it has generators. So we're going to go ahead and create a project called Image Browser. And that created all the files and folders. And let's just go into that folder. And then let's run bundle to install the default gems. And then let's run the specs to make sure it passes and everything's working fine. So this is going to compile that, which will take a little bit of time. I'm on a MacBook Pro Retina to give you an idea of how fast it compiles. And so it's all compiled, it's running, ran the one spec, it passed, so let's run the app. And the buttons work, everything looks good, we are good to go. So the app we're going to build today is this little 3-screen app where you basically type in a query. It gets a list of images from Flickr, and then you can browse the images and tap them and it'll show a zoomed in view. Okay, let's look at the project. So RMQ sets you up with every, basically a base app that does a lot for you. So first thing we need to do is we need to set up our pods and our gems. And pods are basically, it's CocoaPods, and it's basically just gems, but for Objective-C libraries. So we want that because we're going to install the AF networking pod, which is the most popular networking library in iOS. And then we're also going to use AF Motion, which is a Ruby wrapper around AF networking. And we're going to go ahead and install that. Let's do our bundle. Okay, and then we're going to do rake, and then it complains because we have to do our rake pod install. So we'll go ahead and do what it says. It's actually going to install CocoaPods, set it up, and install AF networking. So this has nothing to do with RMQ, it's just what we need to do to get query Flickr. Okay, and looks like everything is working. Great. Okay, now, first we need the first screen, which is the, I don't know, let's call it the find screen. And when RMQ created our project, it created a main controller, so we'll go ahead and just use that. And here it is, and here's all the default code that it creates. And it creates a bunch of stuff you can delete. Just shows you an example of how to do things. So let's get rid of some stuff. We don't need the nav stuff, we don't need the 2 buttons there, but we'll leave the title. Let's change that to image browser or browser, whatever that is. And we're only going to do portrait. We're not going to do landscape. So we can remove all that. Stop the video if you want to see what I just did right there. It's all going by pretty quick. Image browser. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's create our first thing, which was a label. And now RMQ has an append command, which is similar to jQuery's append. It basically adds a subview if you're familiar with iOS development. You can either give it a view that you already have, or you can just give it a class and it will create the view. So we're going to give these are style names. The search label and the query are style names. And then the get is something that should look familiar if you're should look familiar to you if you're used to jQuery. Basically, the RMQ append creates a UI text field, gives it the style name query, and then the get returns the actual UI view. If you don't do the get, it actually returns an RMQ object. If you're not familiar with RMQ, there's another video. It's like 6 minutes long, and it gives you a quick overview of what RMQ is. Okay, so I created my text field, I created my label, and I created my button. And on the button, I did an onTouch event. And I'm just going to put out, do a puts button tapped. Okay, so now I'm going to open my style sheet. So we're going to use everything of RMQ. Some people use RMQ with Teacup or Pixate or stuff like that. I'm going to use RMQ style sheets, which, since I created it, is the one I prefer. So RMQ style sheets use code. So it's kind of similar to Teacup if you use Teacup, except for Teacup uses hashes, which is great. It's more concise than RMQ's. RMQ's code is much more verbose. There's some inherent problems with Teacup, and that one of the biggest problems is when you get an error, it doesn't tell you what line of code the error happened on because it's just a hash that runs at runtime. RMQ styles are all code, so if you mess up line 17, it'll tell you the problem is in line 17, which is huge. RMQ style sheets are also more performant, obviously, because they're all compiled at compile time, obviously. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm looking at my mockup, and then I'm creating the 3 styles for search, label, query, and the button. So what I'm showing you right here is I changed the font to font.large. That's actually in the application style sheet, in case you're wondering where that is, and color white, and then I'm going to set up the frame. So we'll set it 10 from the left. 100 is fine. We'll make it 10 from the right, so the app width minus 20. And then probably set that about 50 tall, it looks like. Okay, and let's just copy that frame to the other 2. And then we just gotta move this down a little for each one. And move this other one down. Okay, let's set the background of the query text box. They're called UI text fields in iOS to white, and also give it a large font. Now the button should be blue. Yep. It's gonna say go. And we'll make the text color white so you can actually see it. Okay, it looks good. Put the font the same size. We are good. That looks about right. Let's go ahead and try that. And we got an error. Let me look at this is. Font, yes. So what this is for a UI text field, our styler doesn't have the font method, so we have to get the view, and let me explain that a little further, make sure that works. It's not styled right, but at least it's working now. Looks like something's messed up with the width. Let's look at that. Yes, app width minus 20, not app width equals 20. So basically, RMQ style sheets, they use something called styler. It basically wraps the object, and in RMQ, we don't modify any of the existing objects. Well, we modify a few, but we do as little as possible. So when you're styling something, it has a styler, and it wraps around it and gives you a variety of syntactic sugar to make styling easier. And if you don't have, that looks good. Yeah, it could probably be moved up a little, but other than that, it's looking pretty much like it. There we go, there's a cat. Okay, so if you don't have the method in the styler, you can then just access the view with st.view, which gives you the actual view. So in this case, query on UI text field does not have a styler for font, which I need to add. It should. And then in that case, I just get the view, and then I set the font to the view. That's the way that works. So I'm just moving this down or up, excuse me. So if there's no styler, just to beat that dead horse, get the view and set the property or call a method as normal. Okay, this looks good. Let's try that bad boy out. And that looks good. Awesome. One problem here is we probably should focus that text field so the keyboard opens. So how we're going to do that is we're going to use the RMQ command focus. In iOS, what you do is you set it as the next responder, and that will focus it. RMQ has a command called focus that will do it. So because we append it and then we get back the RMQ object, we can call another action on the RMQ object, which is focus, and then we can call the get. If you're not familiar with jQuery or RMQ, it allows you to chain all the commands because it always returns an RMQ object. So that's good. Did what we wanted. Okay, so let's do our search for images method, which is basically gonna it's gonna query Flickr with a query. It's going to then search through the HTML that's returned for any JPEG. It's gonna put this into an array, and then we're gonna populate what's called a collection view, which is, if you're familiar with iOS tables, it's like a table. It was introduced, I believe, in iOS 5 or 6. Unlike a table, it allows you to change the formatting in lots of cool ways. So one of the basic formatting is just a flow view, which allows you to do things like a series of photos in our mockup. Okay, so that's all hooked up. So let's go back. Okay, so this method search for images, it doesn't have a lot to do with RMQ. We just need this to work. So I have the URL here from Flickr. I just did a search on Flickr and then grabbed the URL. It's pretty basic. There it is, and the query is Q there with dog to test. So we'll just go ahead and put the query in there. And we're going to put it to URL to make sure it's working. But before we do that, if we do dogs and cats, it's going to fail because the space is not a valid URL, so we're just going to do that. We could encode the URL, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to replace spaces with %20, which will do what we want to do the easiest way. Let's test that. Let's do cats and dogs. And there it is, cats %20 and %20 dogs. Looks good. Awesome. Okay. So now we're going to use AF Motion and AF Networking. Now, once again, AF Networking is the most popular networking library for iOS, and AF Motion is a RubyMotion wrapper around AF Networking. And they have this really nice HTTP GET with the URL, and then gives you back the results, which is very simple. And we're going to set the HTML to the body of the result, and as long as that exists, we're going to put that out. Okay, let's try that. Cat. Ooh, error. Error is undefined method get for HTTP symbol. Oh, yes. Missed a colon there. Okay, cat. Oh, another error. No problem. Undefined body for nil class. What did I do? What did I do? I put HTML. That's nice. I meant result. Okay, so results, what it returns from the AF motion. No big deal. Let's change that. Result body. That's what I meant to do. And let's run again. Now, RubyMotion, if you're not familiar, it doesn't recompile things that's already compiled. It just recompiles the changes that you make. So once you compile everything, look at that. Beautiful HTML. Once you compile the first time, running it is really fast, so you can do kind of iterative development like this. Of course, in real life, you'd want to rewrite your specs. And it's actually really quick to do TDD because the compiler is pretty fast. But we're not doing any specs in this. Okay, so let's grab our images. And what we're going to do is we're going to scan the HTML. And we're just going to look for JPEG files anywhere where there's a source, because I don't want just the whatever JPEG files in the HTML. I want to look for anything it's linking to, so we get the bigger images. So we're going to look in source, and then we're going to grab anything, any file that's a JPEG. And the regex is simply looking for anything in source with JPEG more than one character. Okay, and then it's going to map that, and it's going to return the first of that match, which should give us a nice array of all the JPEG files that any link is linking to in the HTML. Pretty basic little parser there. So awesome, those look good. Static flicker, yada yada yada. Very cool. Now, because we're accessing the network, we probably should show the spinner. So RMQ has some nice animations, and one of them they have is the start spinner and the stop spinner. And that's just a nice wrapper around the built-in iOS start and stop spinner. They don't look really good, but that's what we're going to use for now. And then that way, so basically we're start the spinner, and then once the HTML comes back and it does its work, we're going to stop the spinner. Also, what we want to do is we want to open up our images controller, which we don't have, but we'll go ahead and create the method for that right now. And we're going to set up the image array if the image array is bigger than 0. So we'll harden this a little bit. So let's go ahead and make that method. Okay, and then let's make sure it's working like we always do. Flip over there, run it. Boom, boom, boom. Open controller here after our array. Awesome, working. So now we need a controller. So this is where RMQ gets pretty cool. We want to do a UI collection view, and if anyone listening has done a collection view, you know there's lots to it. So RMQ has a nice little generator called RMQ create collection view controller. We're just going to call it images. It creates all the files for us, including a custom cell. We're just going to refresh that, and let's open up our image controller. So what it does is, let's open up our image controller style sheet. There it is, there's our style sheet, and then let's open up our custom cell, which is images cell, and then let's open up the cells style sheet. So basically we have 4 files, the controller style sheet, the cell, and the cell style sheet. And it does a bunch of boilerplate code here. So let's go ahead and open that controller for real here. Let's create the controller first. So images, cell, controller, do a new. And then let's grab our navigation controller, which is at the top of our main controller. We're going to go ahead and push that controller on to the stack. I need to make an RMQ push controller and an RMQ pop controller, because that's a lot of boilerplate you have to remember. Okay, let's run that and see if it actually works and opens up our collection view. Search for cat. My cat is named Callie, by the way. And exception. Undefined method push view controller for nav control. I did something wrong. No big deal. Let's go look. Main controller 41. Oh, this wasn't 41. I was just opening that. Oh, there we go. Animated. That's why I need an RMQ command for that. Okay, cat. Favorite query, easy to type. Ooh, there's our collection view. Isn't that cool? Random colors. You can spin it. It's actually pretty awesome. Okay. So let's clean up this. Let's get rid of the code we don't need. We're not going to support landscape. We're just going to support portrait. So we can get rid of that. Has some defaults here, like 1 section, 200 items. Delete this. Cool. And our style sheet. Looking good. Looks good. Okay, so we need to pass the images into the controller. Variety of ways to do that. You can create an initializer that has it. I'm going to go ahead and just make an attribute and then set it right here. Image URLs. Then what we're going to do right here is it's going to ask for the number of items in the section. We have 1 section, and we're just going to return the length, which tells it that there are how many ever URLs we have. And then we're going to actually update the cell with the URL of the image for that particular index. I'm going through this quick, but you can stop and look what I'm doing. So I need to add this to our cell. I'm just going to do an update method, and I'm going to pass in the URL image. I'm sorry, the image URL. And that gets it from the array. So there's a lot to how collection views and tables work and how they reuse cells and stuff. I'm not going to talk about that right here, but it sets it all up for you, which you can look at the code. Oop, there we go. Look, every time I load the new cell, it grabs the image URL, so that's working. So there's a lot to it, but RMQ sets up the skeleton pretty well, and you can look through it and see how it works. First time I did that in RubyMotion, it took a long time to figure out how to make a collection view, sadly. Okay, so we're gonna change this boilerplate and we're gonna make an image view. And we're gonna call it image. And we're gonna set it to the URL. Now, image.url is actually added by AF Motion. That is not a normal method on an image view controller. And what we need to do is we need to style that. So we created the style. Now, the symbol : image is the style name. And so we have to create the style, and then we set the frame to full so that it would take up the entire cell. Now, this actually should work, assuming I typed it in correctly, which is actually kind of cool because that's awesome. So we just created a collection view with all the images from that Flickr webpage. They don't look exactly great, but it works. They're kind of stretched there. That's pretty awesome. Okay, let's go back. Let's clean that up a little. So first thing we want to do is let's change that to fit the aspect, or fill the aspect. No, fit the aspect. That's what we want. Actually, yeah, fill. What I'm looking at right now is called Dash. It's a API documentation application. It's really awesome. You should buy it. I should get paid by them because I always recommend it. Okay, so it's content mode, and then we want it to be aspect fill, so that takes up the whole thing. Content mode, not UI view. Content mode. Couldn't remember the constant. So once again, our styler for image does not have the content mode. I should add that to the styler so we don't have to look that up, and we can make that a little easier. Okay, so that should be, yes, so it fills with the aspect ratio. Now it's popping out of the box because we're not clipping to bounds, which is the default for a view in iOS. So we're just going to go ahead and do clips to bounds. Equals true, and what that's going to do is it's going to clip. It's kind of like I forget what it is actually in CSS, but basically anything that exceeds the bounds of the view will be clipped, obviously. So the other thing I did is I changed the size. I want them bigger than the little 3. So the clip to bounds seemed to work. And the size, I have too much padding here. So I did it 2 wide and 5 deep. Or, yeah, that should be 0 and 0. And then the item size, that's right. Oh, yeah. We need to get rid of the content inset. Should be 0 all the way across. So we have no inset, and then we have no spacing, and we have no line spacing. So we have everything's nice and flush. 2 across, 5 down. I just did app width divided by 2 and app height divided by 5. App height and app width are part of RMQ's. Look at that. RMQ style sheets, and there's our kitties and other strange things. Very cool. That's what we want. Let's try our cats and dogs, make sure that's all working. And then we have cats and dogs. Oh, they're cute. Okay, let's get out of here. No rest for the wicked. Let's continue on. Okay, so let's do something real nice before we continue on to the zoom. And let's just set the title of the query to the second screen. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we want to do the zoom. So basically if you tap an image, we want to zoom full screen on that image. And there's a variety of ways to do this. I'm going to show you kind of a really cool RMQ way to do it. There's other ways to do it. There's tons of ways to do it. And this may or may not be the best way to do it in this situation, but since this is a demonstration of RMQ, I'm going to do it that way. So I created a method called openPopUp. I'm going to go ahead and send the image when you select a cell. So I'm going to get the row of that cell, and then I'm going to get from the image URLs the URL from that cell. And then I'm going to pass it into image popup. That's pretty basic. So now we should have our image URL. So what I'm going to do here, this is pretty cool. So I'm going to wrap the window. This is the current window, RMQ app window's current window, and I'm going to wrap that inside an RMQ object. Once I do that, I can do stuff to it. Like for instance, I'm going to actually append a UI view to the window. We don't want to do it to our controller because we want the pop-up to be over the entire screen, not on a controller. That's why we're doing it to the window. And the window of an iOS app is simply a UI view. So what I did right there is I created an overlay. We're just going to do a slightly dim overlay. And then after I created it, I did animations fade in, which is going to fade it in, which should give us something nice. So now what I need to do is create a style. And my style, I'm going to set the frame to full, which is the entire app. Then I'm going to set the background color, and I want it to be transparent. So normally we can do like color black, color white, which are built-in methods for color. But we also have from hex, which is for like hex triplets. And we also have from RGBA. So I'm going to do 000, which is black, and I'm going to do it 70%, which should give us a nice little overview. So let's test that. Now we're going to do it where it uses the least amount of memory, so we're going to create and destroy the views every time you zoom in. So let's go ahead and click on one of these skaters here. Okay, so I created an overview and it faded in. If you look at that, it's very little code I did to do that. It's actually really cool. I created it, I appended it, I faded it in, and I styled it. I'm gonna remove these. Tired of these puts now. We don't need them anymore. That's all working fine. Okay, so once again, I appended it, I animated it, and I style it. Now I'm going to do an event. When you tap on that overlay, I want it to go away. So on tap, RMQ has events for gestures and events. They're all called events in RMQ because I denormalized them, but they're both gestures and events. So in this case, we're going to do a tap gesture. And then when we do that, we're going to hide the overlay, and then we're going to remove it from the DOM, from the controller's subview tree. So we say cat, we click on a cat, we get that, we click on it, and it goes away. So that creates the UI view and removes the UI view every time you do that. So this is more memory efficient, but of course slower because you're creating it over and over again. You could easily cache the overlay and whatnot and then just hide it and show it again. That would be fine too. Now I'm going to create an image view so we can see our image. Let's call this overlay image. To note, it's actually not called overlay image like I just said. It's overlay image is the style name. I'm actually thinking about changing RMQ where that actually is the name of the view, not just the style name. Okay. So we want this label right here where it says tap anywhere to close. So overlay image, we get the actual image view and we set the URL to the image URL. That's once again part of AF motion, just like we did before. So now we just have to style the overlay image, and we need to set it to full like before. So we want to take up the entire screen. And we're going to get what we did before here, except for we want aspect fit, not fill. And the difference is, let's copy that code we did before. Let's grab that. The difference is a fill will truncate the image and a fit does not truncate the image. And since we're zooming in, we want to see the entire image here. So the overlay note is a label. So we're going to do a text equal tap anywhere to close according to our mockup that our lovely product manager gave us. That would be my cat. She is the official product manager here. Okay, I just set the text to tap anywhere to close. I set the font to font small. Once again, font small is inside your application style sheet, and color white is a built-in color. And then I want to set the text alignment to center. When you have stylers, when you have styler methods for things, it's very convenient. Like text alignment equals center. If you use the iOS version of that, I'd have to look that up because I can never remember what it is. Okay, so what I want to do is when I tap on the overlay, I actually want to remove the image, the note, and the sender. And the sender is the overlay itself. So let's do that. Kind of the power of RMQ selectors. So let's go ahead and look up trees. Okay, there's tree. Let's go ahead and tap one of those. Boom! That is awesome. We didn't see the label though. And it's not going away, so I made a mistake there. But still, it's pretty freaking cool if I do say so myself. You'll see this error in the console here. Ignore that, it's just a text, UI text field error. I don't know if it's a bug in RubyMotion or on iOS. I think iOS. What did I do wrong here? Okay. Oh, yes, I see. So, okay, I need to use the window. So use O find and find all the subviews inside the window and find those 3 subviews and then hide and remove them. I was just doing RMQ, which is going to do the controller, not the window. So this should work. And we should be pretty much done here, assuming this all goes well. Crossing my fingers. Search for winter, because why not? Those are sort of winterish. There we go. No label, but that's working. Look at that. Goes away. I probably just made a typo on the label. We'll go ahead and check that in a second. Back. Okay. And my label, oh, no frame. Yeah, I actually have to set a frame for a label, otherwise it exists. It's just default in RMQ frame is 0000. So you won't see on the screen. So that's why we didn't see it. So I'm gonna set the top to about 20 to move it below the top section. And then, sorry, that was my cat walking on the keyboard. Like all product managers, they really can't wait for you to finish. And there we go. Tap enter to close. Awesome. Let's just do one more. There we go. Dancer. Boom. Look at that. Entire image browser. Start to finish. RubyMotion and RMQ. Looks like we have everything. Awesome. Well, thanks for watching.